Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Phil at the Movies. I'm your host, Phil Walsh, and you are listening to episode number 127 of this ongoing podcast that is for the love of movies. I want to thank you, as always, for tuning in each week and hearing what I have to say on movies and cinema. Whether you are watching this on YouTube or listening either on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your favorite podcast, thank you for being a part of this cinematic journey with me. Your support, your encouragement, and most important of all, your friendship means the world to me. And I know I may sound like a broken record from time to time, but it is true, and I mean it. I am so grateful to each and every one of you who takes the time to listen or watch this show and engage on social media or in the comments or through email. It means the world to me, and I thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Before I begin with today's topic, slight change in the schedule again. I had initially planned for today's episode to be my review of Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, but as I indicated last week, I've been dealing with a personal matter, and I'll be up front with you and say that I lost my grandfather in the middle of last week, and he was 99 years young. We knew it was inevitable. We knew it was coming, but it doesn't make the loss any easier. And certainly, for me and my immediate family, this has been a real trying time and an emotional one. And again, grief is a very random and at times frustrating process. And we're going through that right now. Actually, as I'm recording this, his service is for tomorrow, and so that kind of just explains the change in the agenda for the show. But I just wanted to share that with you because just sort of thinking about him and his life, he was incredible. He was an incredible man who truly was the embodiment of the American dream. In many ways, he served with honor during World War II, saw many battles. Truly, part of the greatest generation is an understatement. But beyond that, he came home. He was entirely self-made. He opened and founded a furniture store, which is still in existence today, and God's honest truth, he worked and owned the business for over 60 years and was pretty much involved and engaged with the business right up until his passing. And I will say to you, he had such an incredible mind, such an incredible spirit. He may have been 99 in terms of his age, but he did not act it. He was as sharp as a tack, and sometimes it made me question my own strength and vitality, because he just had boundless energy. And for me, he was an inspiration. He was a mentor. He was like a father in many ways, and so this is equally hard for me. But I have tried to remember sort of the inspiration that sort of he led throughout his life, which was he always put his best foot forward. He always had something positive to say. He was never one to wallow in self-pity. He was never one to sort of throw in the towel with despair. And he was the type of person, like me, if he were here right now, he would be getting up and finding a way to go over to the place that he loved the most, which was to be at that store. And I will tell you that kind of spirit, that can-do attitude, is something that I have really tried to instill in my own life. And again, certainly, this is a silly podcast in many ways, but I sort of feel that call, if you will, of still carrying on and still trying to make this weekly commitment and doing the episodes because I love it, because it is a passion. And that's something that I saw him do all of his life. He always carried on. He always had such a zest for life, and always looking to do something, always looking for the next thing with great anticipation and in great excitement. And so I've tried to remember that, especially over the last week, and just in little facets of life, and even in this small arena with the podcast. I know he would be saying, because I worked with him at the store, and I still am involved with the business, but he'd be the type, get over there and get to work type thing. He would be very, matter of fact about, don't wallow in despair, and I kind of feel that that spirit, that calling, in sort of in the last week. And so that's, again, what's been going on. He'll be forever missed, and always remembered in my family. Again, it's left a pretty big hole in our hearts, but we have nothing but the memories and the love to sort of carry us through and to tide us over. But that is the background of what's been going on in my life over the last week, and that is why there's been some changes in the schedule. So I just wanted to sort of let you know what's been going on and why the agenda has been in flux. So at some point later this month, maybe it'll be in October, I will have reviews for Strange Darling and Beetlejuice. But again, just bear with me as sort of I come at this week to week and try to keep with putting out the episodes. And again, I love doing it, so this is not like oh gosh, I'm under a time crunch. I don't look at it that way. I love doing it, and I want to put it out there because, one, it's a commitment that I have made, but also because I love doing it. And I think if you're passionate about something, if you love doing something, then it's never actually work. And that is actually, again, to tie it in with my grandfather, that was how he lived his life. If you love something that you're doing, it's never work. It's good work. It's fun work, if you will. And that's how I view in this instance doing this show. So that is the change. That has been what's been going on. So today will be an episode that I would have done later in the month, but actually it will coincide rather perfectly with today's episode. So it'll be my top 3 Tim Burton films. This, of course, in honor of Beetlejuice. I hope you enjoyed the show, everybody. Tim Burton, one of the most inventive and creative directors of our time. I would easily put him on a personal Mount Rushmore of directors, and some might say, "Oh my gosh, how blasphemy! How could you do that?" Tim Burton is a visionary, and a visionary in the sense that his films have a unique style and voice, and it's one of those situations where, like with a Christopher Nolan film, a Christopher Nolan film, a Spielberg film, a Scorsese or a John Carpenter, and you certainly know a Tim Burton film. There is a look, there is a tone, there is a tenor, there is a creativity. It's almost inexplicable, but you can just know by the designs and the effects that are in his films. You're seeing something at the bare minimum, a visual and stunning treat. And I've always loved his works. And every film he has done, whether it is Beetlejuice, whether it is Edward Scissorhands, or more recently, a film like, actually not really more recently, this is going back over a decade now, but a film like Sweeney Todd, or even a movie like Big Fish or Sleepy Hollow, or Ed Wood for that matter. His films always have this clever design and unique inspiration that only he could get away with, only he could create. Like I said, a film like Edward Scissorhands, for example, is bonkers. I mean, you've got a guy who has scissors for hands, but yet it is so poignant and beautiful and tragic. It's almost Shakespearean in a way. And Tim Burton does it with such creativity and does it so flawlessly. You've got the gothic end on one hand, and then you've got this sort of 1950s suburban-esque comedy drama on the other, and he molds them together beautifully. That is Tim Burton. That is really the best way to describe it. It's this interesting mixing of genres and this sort of blending of creativity with gothic flair and unique designs. And his films, again, whether you enjoy them necessarily as like had a weak third act, whether you look at it through that lens or you just enjoy it as an experience, I'm always excited for a Tim Burton film. And as I say, he's one of the most visionary directors alive. And I really would put him on a Mount Rushmore, because I think he has left such a legacy of such different films. And even though, again, he has a unique style that is wholly original and exclusively Tim Burton, each one of his films have had a statement. He's tried to say something and do something with each film, and that's wonderful. That's creative, and that's not something you can say about every director. And a lot of times, particularly as someone's getting up there in years. I mean, not that he's ancient by any means, but sometimes directors, after they've done a number of films, they sort of fall into patterns or just sort of phone it in. And he's one of those directors. He keeps almost reinventing the wheel in a way. So like I said, you can watch a film like Beetlejuice, you can watch a movie like Ed Wood, you can watch a film like Sweeney Todd or Dark Shadows, and again, they're all going to say something different. They're all going to have a unique flair and design, but yet it's still a Tim Burton film. And I think part of that is he has this uncanny ability to look at the outsiders, if you will, and sort of tackle their storyline, if you will, and sort of speak to that perspective with such originality and flair, and again offer a real profound commentary that, again, it's not just surface level. He really does sort of get into the very kind of nature and soul of all of his characters. And again, he sort of does this wonderful ballet of the tortured souls or the freaks, if you will, particularly in films like say Batman or Batman Returns or Sweeney Todd. He's very good at sort of finding that in, so to speak. But I was sort of looking over his filmography, and I mean, honestly, it was hard. It was very hard to narrow this down to a top three. And honestly, I went back and forth with two of these films because it's like right on a knife's edge. I mean, one point I had one film at 3, and then the other one a close third. Then I looked at it again. I said, no, I think I gotta go. I gotta go with my gut. And so, again, don't come at me with the virtual pitchforks. These are just my opinions. I'm not. Again, this is coming from the heart. This is somebody who I love Tim Burton's films. I've seen all of his films. I enjoy his movies. I honestly would say I don't think he has a quote bad movie. He may have films that are some might be a little weaker or don't have quite all the sauce, if you will. But at the very least, you're going to be entertained and you're going to have a visual experience, and that is something that, again, is sort of worth the price of admission as far as I'm concerned. But with that being said, I will give you my top 3 Tim Burton films. So again, don't come at me. These are just my opinions. I am curious though your top 3, or if you can't torture yourself, do a top 4, do a top 5, or tops. Again, list how many you want, but for my purposes, I wanted to just do a top 3 because certainly if I didn't, we'd be here all day and into the night, and I want to be fair to your ears with this show. But all right, starting off, I've done enough rambling. Number 3 for me, and again, this was right on a knife's edge. It is Sleepy Hollow, and I will say, it was between this and Beetlejuice, and I had Beetlejuice originally, and then I said, no, I got to go with my gut. Sleepy Hollow, starring Johnny Depp, Christopher Walken, Christina Ricci. This film, my gosh, when I talk about a visual style, this is quintessential Tim Burton. Now, if you are a fan of the Sleepy Hollow Headless Horseman story, the tale, this is by no means a faithful or direct adaptation. If anything, this is it's sort of in name only. Johnny Depp does play Ichabod Crane, but not in the conventional sense. Again, there's a lot of sort of liberal and loose interpretations on the characters and story. But you know what? It's fine, because I bought into the whole vision, and I am all for sort of tweaking around the edges or in some cases just subverting expectations. And what I love about this film, one, it's a great movie to watch at Halloween, as is the case with a lot of Tim Burton films. This one especially, the atmosphere in this film, it feels like fall. It screams autumn. It screams harvest. It screams Halloween. And even though it's not a, quote, scary movie, there are moments in this film, particularly with Christopher Walken as the Headless Horseman, that are frankly downright terrifying. That's, again, a testament to the great Christopher Walken, who, again, never turns in a bad performance. But there's just something about this film. It's the tone. It's the vibes of this movie. Again, it is not a faithful adaptation of the story, but it's inspired by it, and it frankly tells something that is both riveting and I think in a lot of ways does try to honor sort of the mythic nature of the Legend of Sleepy Hollow tale. But again, I really come at this film, one, for the performances. I think Johnny Depp does a great job in it. Walken, of course, is a tour de force. It also has a cameo at the top of the film by the late great Christopher Lee, who did a number of appearances in some of Burton's films. And even though it's a brief role, Lee has such a commanding presence as an actor. It's just wonderful. It's always wonderful to see him, and again, he kind of sets the tone in a way as only he could with his great voice and his dialect, and it just establishes what we're in for. And it really is almost like an amusement ride from hell, and that's kind of how I feel about Sleepy Hollow in the best possible way. Like I said, it's very much in name only an adaptation of the story, but that doesn't diminish it in my eyes. The atmosphere is great. The music is wonderful. Visually, the film, it feels almost like one of those 3D pop-up books, but with like a just a black sort of tar pit sprayed all over it, and again, sort of the gothic flair and the Tim Burton sensibilities. I love this film. I think it has really gained a following in recent years, and I think part of it is just sort of the Halloween-esque nature of it, and you can obviously find it on TV at around this time of year anyway. And so I think that has definitely helped build in the audience for it. But again, just sort of as an experience for it, is almost designed kind of as a sort of a light mystery thriller in a way, but it's the performances, and it's just the atmospheric vibes that exist from shot to shot. It's one of Burton's, I think, most visually compelling films, and it really does take you for a ride, if you will, on a almost a horse-drawn carriage ride from hell. But yeah, number 3 is Sleepy Hollow for me. It's, again, right on that nice edge between that and Beetlejuice. But this is one of those situations where I had to go with my heart on it, because I have just such a soft spot for this film. But that brings me to number 2, and this is another Tim Burton and Johnny Depp collaboration, and that is Sweeney Todd. This film, I remember when it first came out, I wasn't entirely sure what to think. And this before I saw it, because musicals are a mixed bag in a lot of ways, and you know, I think general audiences sort of take to them, they either love them or they hate them. There's really never a middle ground, and I was sort of like, okay, it's a musical. I'm not really sure about that. This was, again, long time ago, and certainly my cinematic palette has changed a little bit. But I wasn't entirely sure, particularly because I knew it's a much darker story, and even though there is the original play and musical, I was kind of thinking, oh boy, I don't know if this is going to work. I mean, okay, you got Johnny Depp in it and Alan Rickman, but I'm not really sure about this. Well, I remember seeing this film, and again, I went in pretty much blind to it. I knew loosely the story of Sweeney Todd, and I'd seen a trailer, but I really tried to go in and just experience the film. And oh God, this was one of those movies where the minute it ended, I wanted to watch it again. And even though it is a quote heavy musical, to me, it's the only way a film of this nature could work, because the music really dictates the story. It really guides the characters in a way. And it's again, sometimes, you know, a stage musical, translating it to the film can be tricky, because it doesn't always work well. Honestly, it's a sidebar. I'll be very curious how Wicked does this year, because that's, again, a very powerful stage production, but as a film, I'm not sure. But Sweeney Todd, dear God, I don't think I could go see the stage version now after seeing the movie, and that's not because, you know, I think, you know, an actor or actors couldn't pull it off, but it's just such the experience and the visual palette of the movie. It's so engrossing, and you feel like you're in London. Tim Burton has such a unique way of being able to bring you into this world and kind of invest you into this character's zeitgeist and psyche. It's quite unnerving. And I mean, Johnny Depp, you know, certainly, you know, he has his controversies. There's no denying that. But, you know, Johnny Depp, what a remarkable actor. And, you know, he's had a number of Tim Burton films. This, I think, would be one of his finest works. The man can sing. The man can sing. Helen Bonham Carter can sing. Alan Rickman could sing. And it's not forced in a way. It's very natural. It's very organic. And I like that there's sort of a roughness to the performances. It's not polished. It's not, you know, sort of Broadwayified, if you will, you know, to coin that term. It's very organic, and just again, I mentioned the visual palette of Sleepy Hollow. This is on a whole other level. I mean, again, you're taking something that is a stage production and you are expanding the canvas, and you know, in some cases that can make a film feel small. In this case, no, it really does work to its advantage. And I have seen a showcase done of some excerpts from Sweeney Todd, and granted, it's just a showcase, but compared to the film, there is no comparison. This is a masterclass, and it's so emotional. Like, again, the music hits you in a way, and as I said, it dictates to the story. And again, by the end of the film, and I won't spoil it if you haven't seen it, I mean, you're devastated by it because it is so haunting and it is so horrific, and yet it is so sad. And again, it's that genius of Tim Burton to be able to find sort of that inside window, if you will, into these tortured character souls as only he could. It's a masterclass, absolute masterclass, and it is without question my second favorite Tim Burton film. Again, if this next film did not exist, Sweeney Todd probably would take the top prize, because just, again, as an experience, but also as a film that is so multi-part and layered, it really does stay with you, and it has that effect. And again, it's one of those situations where the music does really enhance this overall gothic and tragic and horrifying throughout story. So Sweeney Todd takes the second place spot for me in my trio of Tim Burton films. But last but certainly not least, and certainly anybody who has listened to this show before probably can guess my number one, it is Batman Returns. This is Tim Burton's crowning jewel as far as I am concerned. This is one of the greatest Batman comic book films ever made. It is a movie that continues to grow in esteem, and I am so glad that it has found its audience, because it did not when the film was released in 1992. I mean, it made a bit of money, and it wasn't panned or anything, but I don't think audiences were ready for a movie like this. I think if Batman Returns came out today, I think people would eat it up, because it's so wonderfully subversive, and it's wicked, it's menacing, it's a gothic silent night from hell, and I mean that in the best possible way. I mean, talk about a nightmare before Christmas. Tim Burton is one of the best directors to ever work with the Batman mythos, and I mean that full stop. Like, for me, it's Christopher Nolan and it's Tim Burton. Like those two, in many ways, polar opposites in terms of their styles, in terms of their sort of creative engines, but they got Batman. They got those. They understood those worlds, and Tim Burton in this film. Again, I put it heads and shoulders above the first Batman film, which, again, is a classic, but Batman Returns is just on a whole other level because it's a personal film. Tim Burton had something to say with this movie. He made a statement, and there was backlash. You had people crying in the theaters, and parents picketing McDonald's because of the Happy Meal toys, and idiotic statements on TV that this movie was a travesty, and again, all nonsense and BS. But God, what a film! What a film! Because it's not made in a studio. Even though this is a studio film, even though this is a member of an IP and a franchise, this is like the antithesis of an IP. This is a director's statement, and he's telling a story using the Batman characters, and it's done in a way that is so poetic and just. To use borrow a line, if you will, from the film. Again, if you know, you know, but it really is poetic, and it stays with you because it really is an examination of these three fractured souls: Batman, the Penguin, and Catwoman, and sort of their quote dance, if you will, that they do on the stage that is Gotham City. And this is not a Batman saves the day, kind of everybody goes home with their fist in the air, high-fiving. It's a very somber movie. It's a very tragic film, and it does sort of tap into those themes of loneliness, and I think it uses the Christmas season in a way that is so unorthodox, and yet it works. Again, it takes the sort of the quote most wonderful time of the year and makes it a nightmare, and it really does tap into this idea of Silent Night, and you could flip that around, Silent Night with a night with a K in terms of Batman and his methodology. But it's a movie that stays with you, and it is so thought-provoking. And I think why it was so divisive, and I think in some cases why it is still divisive in some corners, because it is bold, and it is brash, and it really does take these iconic characters, these mythic characters, and really subverts them and tries to make a statement using them. And, you know, for me, I love it when directors do that, particularly with these established characters and properties. There's nothing more frustrating or boring to me than to just basically take out the comic book and slap it on the screen. I find nothing exciting or original about that. When I go see a movie like a Batman film, I want to be entertained, but I also want to be challenged. And I want the characters to be subversive in a way, still honoring the sort of the mythic stature and the mythos, but also have something to say. Like, to me, this is about as Batman as you can get. Honestly, for a long time, Batman Returns was my favorite Batman film. I mean, you can probably guess which movie surpassed it, but save that for another day. There's just something different about this film, and there's the darkness to the story. And again, I think the fact that it's again taking the Christmas season and subverting that, and sort of taking the whole Batman construct and really turning it on its head. Whereas in a lot of ways, the first Batman film plays it very safe. That is, the rules are out the window in this film, and I think it's the better for it. Again, there's a reason why Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman has endured as an icon all these years later. It's why Danny DeVito's Penguin is still talked about. It's why Michael Keaton is beloved as Batman, because both these films, but really this one was unafraid. It was unafraid to take risk, to offend, to sort of subvert and deconstruct. It's a shame that Warner Brothers got cold feet after this film, because I really think Tim Burton found his creative juice on the Batman property with this movie. And I would have loved to have seen a universe where he could have gone on and explored other characters and other avenues, because this really does it wets the whistle in a lot of ways. But no, this is my favorite Tim Burton film. The score by Danny Elfman is incredible. I think it surpasses the original by a mile. The set design, I love the sort of German expressionistic, but yet there's still that hint of Gothic romanticism that's sort of embedded throughout all of the film. I love the fact that Batman and Penguin and Catwoman are all reflections of each other, and I love the story that Burton is trying to say. Even though sometimes people say, "Oh, there's no story with this film." No, there is a story. You just have to look, or you have to be willing to see it. And I'm riveted by this film every time I watch it. I love putting it in every so often, even around the holidays, because it's so dark, it's so twisted, it is so Tim Burton. Like, this is truly the quintessential Tim Burton film. You've got it all here. You've got the Christmas vibes. You've got the Danny Elfman bonkers score. You've got the Gothic subtext. You've got the creative and visual imagination. It's all there, and it is a home run. Like I said, this is, if more comic book films would follow in this footstep, and I'll be criticized for saying this, I'm sure, but I honestly think cinema, quote unquote, would be better for it, because this is what we should want. We should want directors to take risk and not just play it safe and just give us what's on the page. Give us something different. And again, only Tim Burton could make this film, and that's a good thing, I suppose, in a lot of ways. But yeah, Batman Returns, no question. This is my favorite Burton film, hands down. I mean, it's an overused word, and it loses its meaning often. But this is a full-blown masterpiece, and I would honestly argue it as Burton's crowning jewel because, like I said, the sky was the limit. The rule book was out. He could go do what he wanted, and he did it. He made his true statement on the Batman mythos. He made a Tim Burton Batman movie, and frankly, we're better for it. We're still talking about it. I'm talking about it. So there's that legacy, I guess. But yeah, top 3 films for me: Sleepy Hollow, Sweeney Todd, and Batman Returns. 3 different films, but yet wholly Tim Burton. Entirely connected through his visual style, imagination, gothic subtext, and just unique ability to shine a spotlight on the outsider and do it in a way that is both poignant, haunting, and real. And again, even though the situations may be fantastic and over the top, Burton finds a way to sort of get down into the very soul and psyche and say something with these characters that can, in many ways, reflect the human spirit and our own world at large. But yeah, Tim Burton, one of Hollywood's best, one of the great directors of our time, and as I said at the top, I would put him on a Mount Rushmore of directors, hands down. So there we have it. Sleepy Hollow, Sweeney Todd, and Batman Returns. Those are my top 3 Tim Burton films. Let me know yours, though. What are your favorite Tim Burton films? Do you agree with that list, or do you have others? I'm curious to know. But that does it for me today, everybody. Again, thank you as always for tuning in and bearing with me with the schedule adjustments. Again, be a little up in the air over the next few weeks, but again, I appreciate your understanding during this time. And if I can just be a little preachy for one moment, I don't normally do this, but again, sort of in light of the circumstances, if you have an aging grandparent or aging loved ones, or just frankly any loved one, nearby in your life, hug them a little closer. Give them that extra hug. Give them a call. See what's going on. Tell them you love them, because, again, not to be too melodramatic, but you never know when it could be over. Life is so damn fast, and all you're left with are the memories, and certainly it's not everything, but it is something. There's my advice. There's my philosophy for you today. But in any event, thank you as always for tuning in. I'll be back next week, and we'll do this all over again for the love of movies.